Ever had one of those days when you really wish you would have stayed in bed? One of those days when you're like, why in God's name am I doing all this? I have no idea. You ever had one of those days when you're like, why me, Lord? What have I ever done? Today was one of those days for me. But in spite of all that, hi, how you doing out there in internet land? My name is Brian Trippett. I am the Front Porch Conservative. Welcome to the Hump Day session of Chattin on the Porch. A day that I think we all truly need, or maybe it's better to say a session that we all truly need, because Lord knows it has been a day. Oh, yes, the long-suffering TBA. Oh, the humanity, as Les Nessman used to say on WKRP in Cincinnati. We're on Rumble, we are on Twitter, we are on YouTube, that quaint little alternative social media website, which may get even more quaint after tomorrow night. Oh, there's definitely, honey, weird energy today. That just ain't no doubt about that. It's crazy. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, so if you haven't done it yet, do me a favor. Send out a getter, a gab, a tweet, a truth social, wherever you might be out there in social media. Send out the message. Tell everybody to come on in. Let's just sit down and talk. Because, God, it has been one of those kind of days. I'll tell you what, I am not kidding. Between stuff going on in Washington, D.C., my work life, and everything else, it's like, Lord have mercy, somebody stop this merry-go-round and let me get off. But that's okay. In spite of it all, we're going to power through. We're going to hold our heads high. We're going to put our shoulders back. We're going to look at the world and go, nee. Anyway, my name is Brian Trippett. I am the Front Porch Conservative. I am sometimes known as the wise guy on the wide brim. I am known as the common man with common sense. And more importantly, I am known as your host. Pull up a chair, settle on in, pour yourself a cup of something, or pour yourself from the jug, as the case may be. And let's sit down and talk, because this needs to be one of those kind of nights. Oh, my goodness. So glad. See who all's in the house so far. WWG1 is here. Good evening, all. He's over on Rumble, as he is ensconced in his seat over there. TBA is hanging out, doing his TBA sort of thing. Zippy's going back and forth. We got all kinds of people here in the house. So good to have you guys here. Like I said, it has been a day in one form or another. And not one of the better ones, but that's okay. That just means tomorrow's going to be a little brighter. So we're going to be all right. We are going to be all right. Yes, remember to give a thumbs up. By all means, if you are here, please give a thumbs up. We would greatly appreciate it. Like I said, we're on Rumble, we're on Twitter, we're on YouTube, and oh, by the way, we got some announcements and stuff that I've been really waiting to talk about. I always try to find interesting people to bring on the Electronic Front Porch to have conversations with, and there's a young man whose work I've been watching and following, and he posts on Twitter like a mad fiend, and I love him to death. He's one of the coolest guys around, and he is a documentarian. Y'all might know who this young fella is. Eric Abinante. He is a documentarian. He is also the husband of one Ms. Lila Hart, the Filipino firecracker herself. And you might know Eric from his documentary called Immune to the System. He is going to be here this Saturday morning, 10:30 p.m. on the tail end of Front Porch Brunch. We're going to get together and have a good conversation. And he and I have been going back and forth, and it's not his fault. He's been busier than a one-armed paper hanger. So he messaged me the other day and said, hey, man, I'm finally freed up. What about this weekend? I was like, you want to come on Saturday morning? He's like, what time Saturday morning? I said, well, how about late Saturday morning? He's like, late works for me. So he's going to be here 12:30 Eastern, 11:30 his time, and he'll be hanging out with us. And you're getting a two-for deal on Saturday. Well, actually a triple header. Not only do you get Front Porch Brunch, which is our normal news and commentary on the weekend, not only are you getting Mr. Eric at 12:30, but another old friend of the Electronic Front Porch is going to stop by, Mr. Darius D. Simpson, a absolute friend of this channel, and he is going to be here 3:30 Saturday. I got to firm up with him. We're still on, which, if I know Darius, we're cool. But yeah, he'll be here 3:30 on Saturday. So yeah, you got Front Porch Brunch at 10:30 a.m. You've got Eric coming on for an interview at 12:30 p.m. and you got Darius coming on 3:30. Man, I hope I can schedule some time to eat and go to the bathroom. That's all I'm saying. Oh my God, I'm going to be busy on Saturday. Holy cow. But yeah, those fine gentlemen are going to be here. We're going to talk about all kinds of different stuff that's going on. And I love it when I get the chance to talk to these guys. There's also some folks I'm reaching out to, and I don't know when it's going to happen, but I am going to be persistent in my pursuit because I would love some of the guests I've got in mind, short and long term. If I can get them booked, it would be an absolute thrill to my heart to bring them here for you guys to listen to what they have to say. WWG1 says, pretend it's the Super Bowl, pee during halftime. Oh, gosh. Thank you. Thank you for that. Oh, my goodness. You're the first like? Well, I'll tell you what. Everybody hit that like button on YouTube. I'll tell you what. My efforts to stream to YouTube last night vis-a-vis Rumble Studio were not successful at all. And we don't want YouTube to think that they are the neglected stepchild, although they act like a redheaded stepchild sometimes, which that gets us to our next announcement. And I do not have the thumbnail created yet, but tomorrow night, 8:30 Eastern, we are going to live stream cover the presidential debate between former President Donald Trump and current President Joe Biden. It is going to be on CNN's YouTube page, and we're going to live stream it here on our YouTube page as well as on Rumble and on Twitter. And, we're going to take it as far as we possibly can. If YouTube wants to shut down the stream, they can shut it down. I mean, if CNN sends me some kind of an email during the thing and says, hey, man, if you don't take this down, we're going to sue you, but we're going to take it as far, we're going to take it as far as we can get it, dear. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, CNN says you can't do that. Well, I don't see how, I can see how they can say it, but honestly, I don't see how they can do that. It's fair use. It's fundamentally no different than anything else that gets broadcast. Now, if there's commercials out there or whatever, fine. That's copyrighted material. I can understand that. Yeah, well, and that's the point. Can CNN sue the whole nation? You mean to tell me that the first debate in America, the first televised debate in American history between the current occupant of the White House and the previous occupant of the White House, and social media is not going to be allowed to live stream it, talk about it, comment on it while it's happening? That's crazy. I mean, look, we've done stuff here with Fox. We've done stuff here with other institutions. Oh, they could absolutely do it, but as far as I'm concerned, it's fair use. I mean, if YouTube wants to shut down the stream, that's up to them. I don't want to see it happen, but as far as I'm concerned, I have the right to live stream it. It is fair use. I mean, what are they going to do? Shut all of us down? Tim Pool, Steven Crowder, whoever? I mean, look, I'm not trying to be a hero, and I'm not trying to be some kind of whatever. I just feel like I have the right to stream it. So if YouTube wants to take down the stream, that's up to them. We'll just go over to Rumble with it. We've done that before, and God knows YouTube has shut down stuff. So there you go. So we'll see what happens, but we are going to live stream it. Now, we're starting at 8:30 tomorrow night. The debate starts at 9, and we're going to live stream the debate on all three platforms as long as we can. Like I said, if YouTube shuts it down, they shut it down. And then afterwards, we'll have post-debate commentary. Ruben Christopher Haynes for sure is going to be here. There may be other folks that are co-hosting with us. So, we're going to go forward with it. So get ready. 8:30 will be the pregame, so to speak. And we'll do this thing. We'll make comments during the debate. As I understand, there are two different commercials. So we will, during the commercials, we'll make some commentary. And from there you go. So anyway, that's my way of announcement. Excuse me while I take a sip. Oh, that's good. Okay. All right. Let's get out for a palate cleanser before we get to some of the news. How many baseball fans have we got here in chat? If you're a baseball fan, give me an F in the chat. Because I got something I saw today. And I don't know if Up in Connecticut is here or not, but I had her in mind when I saw this. Because you talk about something that's just one of the most amazing baseball plays I've ever seen. This is going to be interesting. TBA says, do you have your bingo card ready to go? No, I do not. But I will do my best to get one put together for tomorrow night. So there you go. All right. For all you baseball fans out there, I saw this the other day, and I was like, man, this is probably one of the coolest plays I've ever seen. So I'm talking about a CA. Oh, I think I know what you mean, but well, no. Oh, that kind of CA. Now I'm getting what you're laying down. For you baseball fans out there, watch this. Deep fly ball to left center field. He's gone. Oh my God, what a catch! Play it again, Sam. Watch this kid. On a dead run, flips, comes up with it. Amazing. That was just incredible. That was just an amazing catch. I love watching stuff like that. I don't get to do it anymore because, age and time and old and carrying around too many pounds would prevent me from doing something like that. If I try to catch like that, I get myself killed. But anyway, thought I'd share that one with you. That was too cool of a play. All right, let's get into our first story of the night. And the Supreme Court has started laying down decisions. They dropped 2 of them today. Almost dropped another one. We'll get into that subject here in a minute. And I said it was going to be eventful. And one of the most important cases that the court had, they ruled in such a way that, as far as I'm concerned, the court played a game of chicken. Not that they were trying to see how close they could get to deciding it. No, the game of chicken is how much can we look like a foul-feathered bird that does nothing useful in this case. I take you to the pages of the Wall Street Journal, and here we go. Supreme Court rejects GOP-led lawsuit claiming government censored social media. Justices say plaintiffs don't have standing to allege that government officials engaged in censorship. We'll get back to that standing issue here in a minute. Article by Jan Wolfe, we have the following. Dateline, Washington, D.C. The Supreme Court on Wednesday rejected a lawsuit alleging that Biden administration officials unlawfully pressured social media platforms to remove content flagged as disinformation, ruling that 2 GOP-led states and several individuals who posted content online did not suffer harms that allowed them to sue. The 6-3 decision, written by Justice Amy Coney Barrett, capped a wild ride for a case that was a product of the COVID-19 era and persistent claims that conservative viewpoints about lockdowns, vaccines, pandemic election rules, and other issues were being censored online. The 2022 lawsuit, led by Republican state attorney generals in Missouri and Louisiana, fared well in the lower courts, at one point resulting in an unprecedented injunction that blocked several government agencies and scores of officials from communicating social media companies about removing content containing protected free speech from their platforms. And I had done a video about this just after that initial injunction got handed down. It was a good day for freedom of speech, let me tell you. But anyway, let's get back to this article. The lawsuit improperly asked the court, quote, to conduct a review of the years-long communication between dozens of federal agencies across different agencies with different social media platforms about different topics, Barrett wrote. This court's standing doctrine prevents us from exercising such general legal oversight of other branches of government. Let me get that paragraph previous. The High Court said the plaintiffs, which included a handful of doctors, an anti-vaccine activist, and a far-right web publisher, failed at a first fundamental step for any lawsuit, showing that they had suffered specific injuries that judges were capable of redressing. Going a little further into the article, Barrett also noted that online platforms had their own incentives to moderate content and enforce policies aimed at removing false and misleading content, independent of their discussions with the government. None of the plaintiffs could show that any of their speech that was restricted online was a result of pressure government officials placed on social media companies, she said. The ruling crossed ideological lines. Two of Barrett's fellow conservatives, Chief Justice John Roberts and Justice Brett Kavanaugh, joined her ruling, as did the court's three liberals, Sonia Sotomayor, Elena Kagan, and Ketanji Brown Jackson. The three other conservatives dissented. Justice Samuel Alito, joined by Justices Clarence Thomas and Neil Gorsuch, said the government's conduct was blatantly unconstitutional. For months, high-ranking government officials placed unrelenting pressure on Facebook to suppress Americans' free speech, Alito wrote. Because the court unjustifiably refuses to address this serious threat to the First Amendment, I must respectfully dissent. All right, let's talk about this. Well, I don't know if she's a lefty, but most certainly I agree with you. She's a disappointment. And in this case, she's a chicken, along with 5 other justices on the... Well, let me rephrase that. 2 other justices are chickens. 3 of them have found a way to get around being a chicken and actually get what they want. Now, let me get into what I'm talking about here. What bugs me the most about the way this decision went down, I would have been happier if the 6 justices just would have come out and said, no, the government did not censor, and they have the right to be in contact with these social media platforms. You know, that's our decision. Here you go. They didn't even have the stones to do that. They basically said, well, you don't have standing, therefore, we really can't rule on this. And the sound that I heard all day long in my head when I thought about that statement was, you chicken lily-livered cowards. Unbe-frickin-level. If the states don't have standing to protect freedom of speech, and these individuals don't have standing to protect their freedom of speech, then who the hell does? And frankly, when is this court going to finally step up and deal with this? Because I agree with what one commentator said today. We are years, and I mean years, from getting any serious reform on Section 230 of federal law as it relates to social media platforms, okay? It's going to be a while. It doesn't matter how big a Republican majority you get in the House or the Senate. Believe me, with the lobbying and the money that gets thrown around, it's going to take a monumental move to make this happen. Okay? But they just absolutely choked this one. I've got a copy of the opinion right here, which I know you guys could otherwise find online yourselves. But, as I always try to bring things to my audience, I'm going to go ahead and post the link to the opinion. It runs about 68 pages. Over half of that, by the way, is Justice Alito writing a scathing, and I mean scathing dissent, which we're going to take a look at a little bit of it here in a minute. I do want to show you parts of the decision, which, I think need to be talked about. Like I said, it runs 68 pages, so I don't want to, sit here and read the whole daggone thing with you guys. Not that I don't love you, but, I've got a very small audience right now anyway. I start going through 68 pages of a Supreme Court decision, it's going to get even smaller than that. I'm willing to understand the realities here, okay? But I do want to read a few parts of it. This is on the very last page of the majority's opinion. And here you go. The plaintiffs, without any concrete link between their injuries and the defendant's conduct, ask us to conduct, this court standing doctrine prevents us from exercising general legal oversight. We therefore reverse the judgment of the Fifth Circuit and remand the case for further proceedings consistent with this opinion. It is so ordered. Now, the very next page is when the day gets a little bit brighter. This is the dissent, and I'm going to read parts of this. Alito, Thomas, and Gorsuch joining together in dissent. This case involves the district court termed a far-reaching and widespread censorship campaign conducted by high-ranking federal officials against Americans who expressed certain disfavored views about COVID-19 on social media. Missouri v. Biden. Victims of the campaign perceived by the lower courts brought this action to ensure that the government did not continue to coerce social media platforms to suppress speech. Among these victims were 2 states whose public health officials were hampered in their ability to share their expertise with state residents. That sounds like standing to me. I don't know about you guys, but that most certainly sounds like standing to me. If a public health official in Missouri or Louisiana is having their comments taken down off of social media at the behest of the federal government, that sounds like injury enough to constitute standing. Now, I'm no lawyer, but common sense to me seems to dictate that's what ought to be happening here. But anyway, back to the opinion. Distinguished professors of medicine at Harvard and Stanford, a professor of psychiatry at University of California, Irvine, the owner and operator of a news website, and Jill Hines, the director of a consumer and human rights advocacy organization. All these victims simply wanted to do was speak out on a question of the utmost public importance. To protect their right to do so, the district court issued a preliminary injunction, and the Court of Appeals found ample evidence to support injunctive relief. See Missouri v. Biden. If the lower court's assessment of this voluminous record is correct, this is one of the most important free speech cases to reach this court in years, and I absolutely agree with that assessment. The freedom of speech serves many valuable purposes, but its most important role is protection of speech that is essential to democratic self-governance. See Snyder v. Phelps. And speech that advances humanity's store of knowledge, thought, and expression in fields such as science, medicine, history, the social sciences, philosophy, and the arts. See United States v. Alvarez. The speech at issue falls squarely into those categories. It concerns the COVID-19 virus, which has killed more than 1 million Americans. Our country's response to the COVID-19 pandemic was and remains a matter of enormous medical, social, political, geopolitical, and economic importance. And our dedication to a free marketplace of ideas demands that dissenting views on such matters be allowed. I assume that a fair portion of what social media users had to say about COVID-19 and the pandemic was of little lasting value. Some was undoubtedly untrue or misleading, and some may have been downright dangerous. But we now know that valuable speech was also suppressed. This is what inevitably happens when entry to the marketplace of ideas is restricted. Of course, purely private entities like newspapers are not subject to the First Amendment, and as a result, they may publish or decline to publish whatever they wish. But government officials may not coerce private entities to suppress speech. See National Rifle Association of America v. Valuo. And this is what happened in this case. The record before us is vast. It contains evidence of communications between many different government actors and a variety of internet platforms, as well as evidence of regarding the effects of these interactions on 7 different plaintiffs. For present purposes, however, I will focus on just a few federal officials, only one of the most influential social media platforms, Facebook, and just one plaintiff, Jill Hines, because if any of the plaintiffs has standing, we are obligated to reach their merits on this case. Rumsfeld v. Forum for Academic and Institutional Rights. Folks, they absolutely punted. They did. They punted. I'm sorry. There's no other way to say this. Well, okay. But the people that were listed in Alito's dissent, how do any of them not have standing? Now, again, I haven't read Barrett's Barrett's majority opinion here. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. But I don't see how you can come to the conclusion they don't have standing. To me, and to many other commentators, by the way, this is one more effort on the part of the court or American courts in general to avoid ruling on a question. There are 3 chickens in this thing: Barrett, Kavanaugh, and Roberts. There are 3 heroes in this thing: Gorsuch, Alito, and Thomas. And there are 3 people who don't have to be heroes, or I should say, they don't get the chance to be heroes, but they also avoid being a chicken. And you have Sotomayor, Kagan, and Jackson. And if you think I'm wrong about this, I've got a couple of things here. Talking about the question of standing, before I get to that one thing I was thinking of, let me show you guys something. This is from Barrett's majority opinion. Held, neither the individual nor the state plaintiffs have established Article 3 standing to seek an injunction against any defendant. And then she goes on to list a whole bunch of different things here. And going a little further into her opinion, I want to read part of this. The plaintiffs fail by and large to link their past social media restrictions and the defendants' communications with the platforms. The state plaintiffs, Louisiana and Missouri, refer only to action taken by Facebook against a Louisiana state representative's post about children and COVID-19. But they never say when Facebook took action against the official's post, a critical fact in establishing a causal link. Hold on a second, Justice Barrett. I have a question. Is there a statute of limitations for violations of the First Amendment? What you ask? Wait a minute. I want to read that again. But they never say, I'm talking about Louisiana, Missouri, they never say when Facebook took action against the official's post, a critical fact in establishing a causal link. Nor have the 3 plaintiffs' doctors established a likelihood that their past restrictions are traceable to either the White House or the CDC. Now, that's just a load of hooey. 2,000 different examples, pieces of evidence, if I remember correctly, on the day they did the oral arguments that I covered here on my live stream with Daniel R. Street, Brentley, and Reuben Christopher Haynes. That's the number of pieces of evidence that they submitted to the court. You mean to tell me in 2,000 pieces of evidence you guys can't find proof of this? You're full of crap. Oh, I saw Good Logic's. I have not watched it yet, but I saw he posted about this. And yeah, I have no doubt he looked at the court and said, yeah, SCOTUS basically said, screw you. That's what they're doing. Man, sadly, we're all getting used to being effed by SCOTUS, tragically enough. So anyway, she goes on with this. Barrett, that is. Plaintiff Jim Hoft, who runs a news website, experienced election-related restrictions on various platforms. He points to the FBI's role in the plaintiff's platform's adoption of hacked material policies, yet Hoft's declaration reveals that Twitter took action according to its own rules against private posting, intimate media without consent. Hoft does not provide evidence of his past injuries are likely traceable to the FBI. Gee, the lengths that they are going to be chickens on this. Unbelievable what she's doing here. Absolutely unbelievable. Wow. Just wow. Anyway. Oh, I'll bet he went off on a rant. I'll bet Good Logic went off on a rant about this. Trying to balance the scales of public opinion. They gave the right something to have. Yeah, to hell with the Constitution. And it's like I said, if the 6 of them would have said, no, the government didn't censor. They didn't even have the guts to do that. They said, well, these people don't have standing, and therefore we don't really have the ability to rule on this. You know, now, if you get me some people up here who have standing in this matter, then we'll make a ruling on whether or not there were violations of free speech. Lady, yes, Barrett, I'm talking to you. Lady, how much more standing do you need than the individuals who brought suit here and brought 2,000 different examples of evidence of social media collusion with the federal government, or maybe it's better to say the federal government pressuring social media to take stuff down. 2,000 plus different pieces of evidence. And you can't find any way to show, oh yeah, these individuals, they have standing. Unbelievable with this. So we've got some commentary, and we turn to Jonathan Turley, the legendary professor of law from George Washington University. When Fox News was covering the result, he was asked about this. I want to let you hear this because Turley, by his own admission, when it comes to the doctrine of standing, is kind of he's either neutral or he's kind of like, all right, standing is an important doctrine, etc., so on. I really want you to hear Turley on this. So do me a favor, folks, and check this out in 3, 2, and 1.
Case. Jonathan Turley, the First Amendment, obviously you call yourself a free speech absolutist. What does this mean? If the states don't have standing, who does?
Well, it's very frustrating for the free speech community because standing is often used to block meritorious claims. This is one of the most fundamental issues that we are facing. I wrote about this case in my recent book because you have one of the largest censorship systems in our history, if not the largest. It's been called Orwellian by lower court judges. And what the court is saying is that we won't hear you on this issue because you're not the right litigants. Now, I have to admit, I've always been something of a standing dove. I believe that these standing decisions are too narrow because they do prevent the court from rendering a decision on such important constitutional questions. So this issue will have to wait for another day. But one of the things that many of us have been arguing for years is that the government is engaging in censorship by surrogate. I testified about this in Congress, that they have made a mockery of the limits of the First Amendment by doing indirectly what they're barred from doing directly. They're using academic and corporate allies to bar and cancel and blacklist critics on a variety of different subjects. So it's going to be very frustrating for the free speech community because we've been trying to see if there will be a final decision to strengthen free speech.
And he's absolutely right. I mean, and Turley says it far better than I ever will. I mean, what does it take? And I'm going to play another clip here in a second from Andy McCarthy, Fox News contributor as well. But he's right. Standing is being used purely and simply to get around the court having to deal with certain issues they don't want to touch. Yeah. Anything unconstitutional automatically has standing to be overturned. It's supposed to be why they review the cases before accepting. Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. That's an absolutely great point. And oh my goodness, go for big guy. Thank you very much. Since state constitutions can be more restrictive of the government, it is beyond time for state AGs to begin prosecuting any federal official, big tech, employees, executives, and SCOTUS itself for conspiracy to deprive rights. Brother, I mean, and I'm not just saying this because you gave me a super chat, but man, that's so true. I mean, something's got to give here. Something absolutely has to give here. This is insane. I mean, how much longer is the court going to be allowed to get away with this? Either Congress passes something to reform 230 or do what Gopher is suggesting here. AGs begin prosecuting any federal official, big tech employees, and SCOTUS itself for conspiracy to deprive rights. And I don't know how you get around the argument that they're not depriving rights. I mean, this is the most fundamental right of all. I mean, tomorrow night, the right of free speech and the right of freedom of the press is really going to be put to the test. And again, I mean, not necessarily trying to find creators are going to try and live stream this coverage, despite the fact that CNN is saying, no, you can't do that. Oh, excuse me, this is fair use. It is absolutely fair use. But going back to this case in particular, I mean, something's got to give. We cannot go on as a society like this. We cannot go on as a society not being able to freely express ideas. It's like I've always said, if you don't like what someone says, be it me or somebody else, okay, fine. Here is the free market of ideas. Have at it. Tell me why I'm wrong. Agree with me if you want to. But let's have the debate. It is sadly reaching the point, and reached the point in some cases. I mean, when the press secretary for a presidential campaign gets shut down by a network because she's not attacking as much as she's simply reporting a truth, that is the denial of freedom of speech. That is the denial of freedom of expression. And if this court, which is supposed to be defending our rights, is not willing to stand up for them, then we got big time problems here. All right. And again, go for big guy. Thank you so much. That was extremely generous of you. I genuinely appreciate it. Andy McCarthy has some thoughts on this whole thing. And I want to play because like Turley, he is great at expressing this. So check this out.
Andy McCarthy, if I can have you put your political hat on for a second, because you do it so well. Get your thoughts on this first, too. But politically, though, what does this mean now moving forward for the Biden administration?
I actually think if we just get beyond the case, which with Jonathan, I think just really masterfully said what the stakes are here. The broader picture to me is that I think there's an emerging consensus of some of the conservative or right of center justices on the court, particularly Barrett, Kavanaugh, and the Chief Justice, for standing, which gives running room to the progressive bloc on the court, because those three progressive judges, I think, are willing to side with strong standing if it's a case that they don't want to see addressed. And at the same time, they'll depart from that if it's expedient for them to do that. I think they're going to be able to avoid a lot of bad rulings for their side, as it were, on standing grounds, that they're going to be the court is going to be very narrow in what decisions it will make versus what it would rather see decided by the political process.
Great.
And, that's an absolutely great point McCarthy's making here. Look, the judicial liberals on the court, which are more often than not, are Kagan, Sotomayor, and Jackson, know that more often than not, they're not going to win a lot of these cases. However, if they can muddy up the water by throwing, do they have standing? Then you got three squeamish, and I'm sorry, that's exactly what they are. You have three squeamish justices, Roberts, Barrett, and Kavanaugh. They're like, well, this case is going to be kind of a hot potato. You really sure we want to rule on this one, guys? Oh, standing. Yeah. And then Sotomayor's over there going, our job is done. Hooray. That's exactly what they're going to do. And I'm not the only one coming to this conclusion. Check this out. From the inestimable Robert Barnes, Kavanaugh, Barrett, and Roberts forming an institutional control of SCOTUS that will mute the constitutionalist wing of the court. And boy, he is right. And they're going to, and folks, I got bad news for everybody, as if you all don't already know this. But if you happen to be watching this live stream and you're like, I can't understand why the court's doing this. It's very simple. It's very simple. They don't want to rule on this. They don't want to rule on this. They don't want to rule on a whole bunch of different cases. And maybe I'm giving them too much credit by calling them squeamish. But I mean, it's absolutely absurd. Absolutely absurd. Well, I mean, exactly. I mean, is the court basically, are we now reached the point that you have three individuals who don't like hot potato rulings, and they're going to get out of having to deal with it by claiming standing all the time, and then you're going to have 3 liberals side with them, and you're going to have 3 conservatives who actually want to do something about what's up there, and they're going to be outvoted every time. I mean, the Supreme Court really hasn't been that big of a discussion in this presidential election, except for Democrats raising, the Dobbs decision, you took away abortion, the Dobbs decision. But I tell you what, there is a real legitimate reason why we ought to be focusing on the Supreme Court and all of the federal judiciary is to start putting in judges that hopefully actually have the stones to do something. I mean, this one district judge down in Louisiana, and off the top of my head, I cannot pull up his name, the guy who put the initial injunction in on the federal government, that guy did something that nobody else in the federal judiciary has had the stones to do up to this point. And instead of applauding what he did, the federal judiciary is like, nope, we can't have that injunction in place. Got to get rid of that. Nope. And that was out of the Fifth Circuit, which is one of the most conservative jurisdictions in the whole daggone country. One more quick comment about this, and this is from Matt Taibbi of the Twitter Files, who's been following this case with great interest. Quote, it appears the frequent and intense communications that took place in 2021 between the government defendants and the platforms had considerably subsided by 2022 when Hines filed suit. End of quote. SCOTUS basically says that the intense government behavior was just one time, so no big worries. And again, this goes back to my question. Is there a statute of limitations upon a violation of the First Amendment? I guess apparently the 6 justices believe that's the case. Well, you really can't do anything about this because it happened so long ago, and I mean, it's not happening now. So why should we deal with this? Okay, just get a slap on the wrist and let's go on down the road. Horse crap. TBA says Kagan, Sotomayor, and Jackson weren't qualified to be on SCOTUS in the first place, in my opinion. The only one of the 3 of them, to give you my honest opinion, the only one of the 3 of them that I actually think has the judicial chops to do it is Kagan. I may not agree with Kagan, but I respect the woman. The other 2, DEI hires. That's a great way of putting it. Absolutely great way of putting it. Zippy says, can we trade SCOTUS for originalism? I thought we were getting originalism with SCOTUS. That'd be nice. Yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, I don't agree with Kagan, but the woman's extremely smart. Like I say, I don't agree with her on much of anything judicially. But when Kagan actually says something, I pay more attention to Kagan. Honestly, I pay more attention to Kagan than I do Sotomayor or Jackson. That's just me. So yeah, the Supreme Court laid an egg on this one. And we have 2 days to go, unless they stretch this into July. So anyway, well, it's about 8:15, so let me do a real quick commercial. My name is Brian Tripp, and I am the Front Porch Conservative. If you happen to be stopping by this live stream, this is known as Chattin on the Porch. We get together Monday through Thursday at 7:30 Eastern. We hang out for about an hour and a half and talk about the news and give our views on it. And in this case, tonight, we're doing a lot of venting. Now, if you're wondering, I wonder what the ideological temperament of this audience is. We're a pretty conservative bunch, hence my name. But, I mean, even if you don't agree with us, that's okay. And if you're not as conservative as some people here, that's okay. We love you. You can feel free to disagree with me all you want. You can disagree with everybody else. We only have one rule here. If you disagree, be nice. You start being snotty to people, then bless your heart, we're going to have to ask you to leave the electronic front porch. But we're on Rumble. We're on Twitter. We are on YouTube. We're hanging out together. We're talking about stuff. Doing our thing. And if you haven't done it yet, give me a thumbs up. Give me a sub on Rumble and YouTube. So in the time we've got left, let's talk about a couple of different things. And one of them, there were primaries last night across the country. May not have realized that. Yeah, WWG1 says, if you are snotty to other chatters, I'll need to do my job. Yeah, that's right. We have moderators. We have moderators here, and if you want to take a shot at me, fine. I'm the host. I signed up to suffer the arrows of outrageous fortune. Do not go after people in chat. No. That puts you out. Fair point. Fair point. All right. So as I was mentioning, there were primaries last night from New York all the way out to Utah. And let me tell you something. For the most part last night, it was a pretty good night, depending on how you look at it. I take you to the pages of rollcall.com. And here's the first big fish of the night. Bowman ousted in New York primary that drew millions in spending. Westchester County Executive George Latimer got a huge boost from pro-Israeli groups. Article written by Mary Ellen McIntyre. We have the following. New York City. Jamal Bowman came to Congress having ousted a Democrat committee chair in the 2020 primary. The New York Democrat found himself on the other side of the primary challenge on Tuesday, losing a race that Ad Impact said was the most expensive House primary in history. Woo! George Latimer, the Westchester County executive, had 58% of the vote as of Wednesday afternoon, according to the Associated Press, which called the race on Tuesday less than an hour after the polls closed. Dang. That's interesting. Didn't realize that. The Democrat primary for the New York 16th District became a proxy war for the party's stance on the war in Gaza. Bowman had become the first members of Congress to call for a ceasefire and said Israel is committing genocide in Gaza, while Latimer represented a more moderate position. Latimer, a longtime local official who previously served in the State Assembly and the Senate, outraised Bowman, while other outside groups spent heavily on the race. The United Democracy Project, an arm of American Israel Public Affairs Committee, spent $14.5 million. Holy cow. No wonder they're calling it the most expensive primary in American history. $14.5 million. While the Democrat Majority for Israel PAC spent another $948,000. Bowman's allies, including Justice Democrats PAC and Congressional Progressive Caucus PAC, spent $2.8 million to boost him and oppose Latimer. At his election night party on Tuesday, Bowman did not back down from his stance on Israel or other progressive positions like Medicare for All and universal child care. Quote, "Our opponents may have won this round in this time and this place, but this will be a battle for our humanity and justice for the rest of our lives," he said. AIPAC could target next Missouri Representative Cori Bush, another progressive whose primary is scheduled for August. Politico reported on Wednesday that a new poll from the Millman Group found Cori Bush and Democrat challenger Wesley Bell are in a tight race. Still, the race highlighted Bowman's other vulnerabilities. He pulled a fire alarm in the House ahead of a government funding vote last fall, which led the House voting to censure him and is pleading guilty to a misdemeanor. He also voted against an infrastructure bill, one of Joe Biden's biggest legislative accomplishments, which Latimer criticized him for. So there you go. Cha-boom, and he went down. I'll say this. There has been a serious division inside the Democrat Party right now over the whole conflict between Israel and Hamas in Gaza. And I didn't think the tension would get so bad that you'd have incumbent Democrats like Bowman going down. Now, granted, Bowman's a whole different animal. Okay, the whole pulling the fire alarm thing was a stunt that goes one step too far for the Democrats. But man, I did $14.5 million. Good grief. Absolutely ridiculous. Now, on the bright side, I have something of a personal thing to crow about from last night's elections. And this result I was very, very happy with. And let me tell you, not so much for me, but for who is involved. My future ex-wife won her primary. Yes! Let's go back to roll call. Boebert prevails in primary after switching Colorado districts. Controversial Republican beats 5 rivals for nomination. There's my future ex-wife. Oh my goodness. Lovely lady. Anyway, to the article. Daniela Altamari, we have the following. Representative Lauren Boebert's decision to switch districts paid political dividends for her on Tuesday when she won a crowded Republican primary for an open seat in eastern Colorado. Boebert, one of the most vulnerable Democrats in the House at the start of the political cycle, had been running for a third term in a competitive 3rd district, which is centered on Colorado's rural western slope. But facing Democrat Adam Frisch, whom she barely beat in 2022, as well as a challenge from fellow Republican Jeff Hurd, Boebert abruptly switched districts late last year. She ran instead for a reliably redder 4th district seat that opened by Republican Ken Buck's resignation. Boebert has been one of the most visible and controversial members of the House GOP conference since she won an upset primary victory over 5-term incumbent Scott Tipton in 2020. A newcomer to elective politics, she quickly positioned herself as a disruptor on Capitol Hill, heckling President Joe Biden during his 2021 State of the Union address, and tangling with former fellow GOP firebrand Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia on the House floor. Last year, she was embroiled in an embarrassing incident in the Denver theater that was captured on surveillance video. Boebert subsequently embarked on an apology tour and tried to focus on legislative business, but the incident appeared to have cost her significant political capital. Now, Lauren, honey, let this be a lesson to you. Had you been hanging out with me, none of this would have happened. I'm just saying. So, if y'all happen to get a message to my future ex-wife, you can just tell her she needs escorts to certain places to keep this kind of stuff from happening. I am available. Anyway, back to the article. Boebert branded her decision to switch districts as, quote, a fresh start following a pretty difficult year for me and my family, which included a divorce from her husband. She edged out parents' rights activist and radio host Deborah Flora, former state senator and cattle rancher Jerry Sonnenberg, state house members Richard Holtorf and Mike Lynch, and Peter Yu, a business executive. When the Associated Press called the Republican primary for Boebert at 9:22 Eastern, she had 43% in the 6-candidate field. She will face Democrat Tricia Calvarisi in November, according to the AP, which called the Democrat primary at 1:33 a.m. on Wednesday. This race is rated solid Republican by Inside Elections with Nathan L. Gonzalez. So there you go. But are they wrong? Really? There you go. TBA says, isn't Boebert already an ex-wife? Yes, but I can fix her. Really, I can fix her. Let's see what else we got here. WWG1 over on Rebel says, anything to mention that woman's name. Brian, you are so predictable. True, but I am consistent. So yeah, there were some pretty big scalps last night, and now the one disappointment, and I do not have any articles pulled up here about it. The one disappointment for me out of last night was Utah, and there was a young man running for the U.S. Senate Republican primary, John Staggs, mayor out in Salt Lake City. Very conservative. This guy would have been tremendous, absolutely tremendous as a U.S. senator. Unfortunately, he got beat. So, and more by not like a total Romney clone, but definitely not nearly as conservative as Trent Staggs. So, yeah, there you go. Like I say, that's my only big disappointment from the night. All right. It's about 8:25, and I'm gonna got one more topic to talk about tonight, and that is the debate tomorrow night. Oh, well, before we get to that, one other thing from talking about elections. We have some updated polling numbers. And this one surprised me. Quinnipiac dropped a poll today on the presidential race. Would anybody care to take a guess what they think the results of the race were between Joe Biden and Donald Trump nationwide? Please drop it in chat. I'd love to hear what you guys think. Now, keep in mind, Quinnipiac is the one that did the poll. They did it nationwide, head-to-head, Donald Trump against Joe Biden. What do you guys think the result is? I'll take a sip while I wait for your answers. TBA says 50-50. That's an interesting guess. It is popular vote. It is popular vote. It is popular vote. Let me add that caveat. What do you guys think Quinnipiac had for a result head-to-head, Trump against Biden nationwide? No battlegrounds, every state in America. So drop your answers in chat. I would like to hear this. Not quite. Interesting. I'll hold it open for another 10 seconds or so, just see if anybody else has got anything. I'll put it this way, folks. When you see this, you're going to be TBA over on Rumble says Biden over Trump by 10 points. Nope. I'll hold it open just a little bit longer. WWG1 says within the margin of error. Nope. No. Zippy says less than 6 to 10. Okay. Trump up by 4 nationwide. I was shocked when I saw this. I was talking to a buddy of mine on the telephone, Smiling Jack. Well, no, I wouldn't say toss-up, TBA, because the margin of error on that poll is like 2.5%. It's like 2.5%, and in this poll by Quinnipiac, of all people, Trump's outside the margin of error nationwide. Take it one step further. If you throw in everybody else, again, and it's from Quinnipiac, that's what surprises me about this. If you throw in everybody else, Trump plus 6. Yeah. Yeah, the Quinnipiac. Yeah, absolutely. This is what shocks me. Oh, hang on. Up in Connecticut, I have got something for you. If I can find it real fast, give me 1 minute here. Oh, tell me I can put my hands on this fast. I saw this the other day and thought of you. Yeah, here it is. I'm trying to see if I can find a better way to display this. But I thought of you when I saw this. There is a poll out of the state of Rhode Island, of all places. And given how close it is to your beloved Connecticut, I thought I don't know if you've seen this yet or not. This is Salve Regina University. They did a poll of Rhode Island, and Biden's only up by 7. Now, it's one poll. Do I think that Trump's going to win Rhode Island? No. But I find it to be very interesting. Very, very interesting that Biden only has a 7-point lead in Rhode Island. Just saying. All right. Let us shift gears a little bit and talk about tomorrow night's debate. And before I do, let me do one real quick commercial. My name is Brian Tripp, and again, this is Chattin on the Porch. We get together Monday through Thursday night, 7:30 Eastern, to hang out, talk about the news, laugh, cry, all that good stuff. So if you haven't done it yet, give a thumbs up, give a sub, would be greatly appreciated. And we will also be back Saturday morning, 10:30 a.m. for Front Porch Brunch. So glad to have you here. Glad you're hanging out with us. Got a lively crowd tonight. Lively crowd. So let's talk about the debate. I haven't talked to Megan in a blue moon, and it's about been that long with Harlow. Well, a little closer to Harlow. But yeah, I'd love for the three of us to get together sometime and just chit chat, especially Megan, because she's been busy with this trial she's covering, and as always, she's bringing her best work. I love Megan to death. I just love her, how real she is. Just a totally awesome person. All right, the debate tomorrow night. Under normal circumstances, I would say that a presidential debate really doesn't make that big of a difference. I think that's a fair assessment. This one, however, could be consequential depending on how it comes down. And the irony of it is, it's not the challenger who has the most to gain or lose as it is the incumbent. And what I'm getting at is this. As it stands right now, if the polls are to be believed, Joe Biden is probably behind anywhere 1.5 to 2 points nationwide. I think that's a fairly conservative, realistic number. Depending upon which battleground state you're talking about, he's running behind 2 to 3 points, maybe more. Okay. We were just talking about that, and good evening, Ruben Christopher Haynes, my co-host for tomorrow night. This is the earliest presidential debate that has ever been. This is the first time, at least that I can think of in American history, that a current president is debating his immediate predecessor who wants to get the job back. Last time something like this even happened was back in the 1800s. And there was no TV, no radio, no nothing. You have two men who know each other very well. But each of them has different goals in this debate. From my perspective, all Trump needs to do as much as possible, and again, I don't care what CNN or anybody else in the leftist media says, this debate is deliberately stacked against him. And by the way, as many have pointed out, Gypsy Muse included, he agreed to these terms. Stacked or not, he agreed to all of it. So Trump's going into a debate where this is stacked against him. On the other hand, all he has to do is be calm, be cool, speak your piece, don't blow up, be disciplined in your messaging, take your shots at Biden where it's appropriate, and walk off the stage. Biden, on the other hand, and this to me is the supreme irony of it all. He has to win this debate. At a minimum, he has to prove to everybody he's got the physical and mental ability to go toe to toe with Trump. And to go to the point, and a lot of people have been talking about this. I think it's the 10-day hiatus is to adjust Biden's biological clock. It's like jet lag. He'll think it's 11 a.m. when he's really 8 p.m. Then another week-long vacay to readjust. Joe will look good. Yeah, I think physically, Joe's going to look rested. He's going to look, he's going to look refreshed. He'll come into this thing, yada, yada, yada. Yeah, they cannot have this showing up. I agree. WWG1 says this debate should be really interesting. I wholeheartedly agree with that. But Biden has to be able to come out of this, and he's got to put down a lot of doubts inside the Democrat Party. There are people who are watching this debate, and they're not even watching it. They're not even watching it per se to see what Trump does, as much as can Biden perform. And with that, I want to go to a column by one of my favorite writers, and I'm going to go ahead and drop this in chat on both sides because, you know, anytime this guy writes something, I will definitely try and do my best to make it a point to read it. This is from the inestimable Michael Goodwin of the New York Post. He's got a column out today, and this is really good. Headline: Biden's high-stake gamble risks everything, including his nomination, as he prepares for the Trump debate. Dateline New York City: It's good to be the king, as Mel Brooks mischievously put it in History of the World Part 1. Great movie, by the way. You want to laugh your butt off. Fabulous movie. It was one of Mel Brooks' best. It's also good to be the president, as Joe Biden is proving with his disappearing act. With his job and his legacy on the line, Biden seized the moment to take a week off to prepare for his debate with Donald Trump, which, by the way, I know I have said this in various forms, and I apologize, but it just bears repeating. This man has been in public life since the early 1970s. He's been a United States senator. He's been a vice president, and for the past 4 years, he's been a president. This man has debated Senate candidates. He has debated fellow Democrats as he was trying on 3 other occasions to get the Democrat nomination for president. He's debated vice presidential candidates. He's debated the guy who's going to debate tomorrow night 2 times already. Why, with all that experience and his intimate knowledge of policy, why does this guy need to take a week off to go to Camp David to get ready for a debate? Now, do I expect him to take some time to prepare for it? Yeah, I can see that. But a whole week to 10 days? I'm just saying. Anyway, back to the article. Going a little further in this piece by the great Michael Goodwin. He's fled the White House to a rustic retreat at Camp David, where scores of aides will build a mock TV studio so he can feel at home on CNN's Atlanta stage on Thursday night. He's said to be blowing off debate rust with lots of practice, getting plenty of sleep, and preparing both to pummel Trump and fight off the former president's attacks. Leftist press accounts of Biden's summer camp adventure I love the way Goodwin puts it. Stresses the talent and experience of his team, all part of an effort to make it sound as if a brilliant brain trust gives the incumbent a huge advantage. However, do not be fooled. The media are boosting this candidate because they hate Trump as much as Biden does. NBC News, for example, embarrassed itself by insisting that the president is trying to hone a positive economic message that breaks through, even though many voters say they still don't feel the effects of his policies in their day-to-day life when it comes to the cost of basic groceries and gasoline. Subtext: these people are so stupid, are so much better off under Biden, they don't realize it, so he has to explain it to them. That's the media's sneaky way of calling Trump supporters deplorable and bitter clingers to God and guns. Some people will never learn. The networks might also add, as far as more Americans saying they were stronger financially when Trump was president than under Biden, the incumbent can't go near the question Ronald Reagan made famous. Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? Most Americans would answer no, hell no, which is why NBC won't touch it. The timing of the debate is a sign of Biden's desperation and could mark his last stand. He's unpopular and a semi-reclusive failure who hasn't aged well, to put it kindly. The overwhelming majority of voters already think he's too old to get a second term and want him off the stage. It's a high-stakes gamble, and if the president bombs in primetime, it's possible he will never formally get the nomination at the Democrats' August convention. Realistically, the only way that can happen is if he agrees to step aside, but a bad performance Thursday could leave him very, very lonely. This is no Watergate, but a debate debacle could prompt a visit from party elders telling Biden he should retire at the end of his term. That would echo the day a GOP delegation visited Richard Nixon at the White House 50 summers ago and told him he would be impeached and convicted if he didn't resign. That's how bad things are for Biden and his party. So don't be fooled by the rosy reports of his confidence and arduous debate prep. It's all an algoprop. An example of the party's free media wing amplifying a $50 million Biden campaign ad targeting Trump in battleground states through June. It depends. After that, it depends. His shaky hold on the party is putting enormous pressure on the president, and a mediocre performance won't be good enough. He has to score a clear victory over Trump. That's why viewers should expect a mudslide of negatives against the challenger. With no success of his own to run on, Biden must demolish Trump's character. Count on repeated references to January 6th, the 34 felony count verdicts against Trump in the dirty Manhattan trial, and dire warnings about MAGA man wanting revenge. Abortion will be another Democrat attack line, with the president blaming Trump for the demise of Roe v. Wade because the 3 Supreme Court justices he nominated were part of the majority. One aim of Biden's onslaught will be to get Trump angry and throw him off his game. Biden would love nothing more than getting Trump to lose his cool in front of what is certain to be a huge national TV audience. The flip side of these calculations is that Trump has a lower bar to clear. He doesn't have to actually win this debate as he does just to remain on top. All he has to do is make sure not to lose it. Now, there's a little bit more to this article, and I'll let you guys read it at your convenience. But yeah, I think Goodwin is spot on here. This is going to be one of the most fascinating debates that we're ever going to watch. And like I say, normally I would tell people, okay, the debates are important, but they're not that consequential. This one has the ability to be. Not necessarily consequential to Trump's benefit, but it's got the potential to be consequential to Biden's detriment. I think Goodwin's absolutely right. I think many other commentators are absolutely right. Biden has to score big. If not an out-and-out knockout, he's most certainly got to be perceived as doing very well. Zippy over on Rumble with a Rumble rant. Thank you very much. I love how January 6th was supposed to be an insurrection, yet they were not armed militias overthrowing governance. Well, there you go. Very true. WWG1 says, it doesn't matter how smart you used to be, dementia takes a toll. Yeah. And this is a great point, too. Obama only needed 1 day of debate prep. One. Of course, the age difference between Joe Biden and Barack Obama is quite significant. This is going to be a fascinating, fascinating night. So like I say, we're going to be here for all of it. Which platform we wind up being on is sort of dependent, but we'll see. But the plan right now, we're going to start live streaming at 8:30 tomorrow night. We will be on YouTube, Rumble, and Twitter. And we're going to stay on YouTube for as long as they're going to let us. So, and if nothing else, we'll just finish it out on Rumble. I mean, Lord knows we've done that before. So, tell you what, guys, we're going to go ahead and call it a night. I've got some things I got to do, and I know you got things you got to do too. And I would love to see Trump do this. Is that the best response you have, Joe? That's what they told you? Yeah, a line like that, really early on in the debate, I think would be extraordinarily effective. So yeah, spread the word. I'll start setting everything up tonight. And, we'll have some fun tomorrow night, no matter what. Anyway, Thank you guys for stopping by Chatting on the Porch. It's been an absolute pleasure to see you guys here as always. Again, if you haven't hit the thumbs up button on your way out, please do so. If you're not subbed to my channel on YouTube and Rumble, please do so. I would really appreciate it. We will be back tomorrow night, 8:30 Eastern, for live coverage of the presidential debate between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. In the meanwhile, you guys have a great Wednesday night. Get plenty of rest. Get ready, because tomorrow's going to be another really interesting day. And in the words of that great American philosopher, Tom T. Hall, just remember, it's faster horses, younger lovers, older whiskey, and more money. You guys have a great night, and we'll see you later.